Hello? Uh, I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. What was that?
It's Andy Reinbach. We had a 1 o'clock today.
Oh, great. Hi, Andy. Thanks so much for calling. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you speaking to me, Miss Corey. How much time do you have?
Well, I probably have about an hour if you need that.
I'm trying to be more merciful than that,
That's great.
but I can't promise it. I may exploit you unmercifully for all this time. You never know.
Okay.
I had a great conversation yesterday with Miss Oakland.
Oh, good. Great.
She was very helpful. She was very happy to talk to me, and I appreciated that.
Good. Can you, I actually didn't, I kind of heard from her a little bit about
Right.
who you are, but could you, could you tell me?
I write for the Huffington Post.
Okay.
And so this is going to be a story about Agenda 21 and what's going on with it around the country and what it is and, like that.
Excellent. I'm very glad that the Huffington Post is doing an article about this.
Well, it's interesting to see it being leaned on by what's really interesting to me is that you're a Democrat, and this is, if you don't mind my observing it, John Birch Society territory.
Well, it's interesting because really what I see it as is, obviously it's an American concern. It doesn't, it's not really a left-right thing. I didn't find out about it from the John Birch Society, and I don't really know anything much about the John Birch Society except my mother never let us drink Welch's grape juice when I was a kid,
Yeah, but that was not Robert Welch. Robert Welch was Sugar Daddies.
Oh, well, what do we know then?
You were deprived of something wonderful, and you couldn't get a hold of it.
Oh,
You were betraying everybody.
Too bad my mom's gone. I could take her to task over that.
That's right. You can make them miserable for weeks on it.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So, but you know that the JBS has been instrumental in promoting this issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I know it primarily because, of course, because I'm a commercial real estate appraiser, and of course, my specialty for 30 years was eminent domain valuation, and I'm a litigation support person for the Department of Transportation. I've just retired.
Right, I know that.
Yeah, so because
I've looked at your site.
Okay, great. So that's where I'm coming from, is from a property rights issue where I just stumbled onto it, really.
Well, let's talk about that. I've been reading all kinds of web postings about this, and when you bring up the property rights issue, of course that leads directly to the question of zoning and whether zoning is taking, and a lot of other issues that have been settled in this country since at least the 1920s.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it seems to me that a lot of the objections to the spirit of Agenda 21 touch directly on zoning. Don't you think that's sort of an uphill battle for you guys?
No, I think that a lot of people really have a very poor understanding of the issues. And I don't blame them because you might think it's kind of esoteric. It isn't really. This is but this is something. Yeah, so this is something that I understand very well. No, I'm not against zoning.
Oh, I have to. By the way, I'm glad to hear that. I have to hear full disclosure. I was in the business myself, and I covered big time commercial real estate for 15 years before I segued over to banking.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with the issues.
Okay.
I even took paralegal courses in real estate law.
Okay, great.
So
Well,
I'm pretty familiar with this stuff, with the takings laws and the zoning rulings going back to the 20s.
okay, sure. And obviously, I'm an appraiser. You're dependent on zoning in order to determine what the highest and best use is on a property. So, you'll hear that old pig farm argument. That without basically without Agenda 21 regulations, you would have a pig farm next door to a house. That train has left the station, as we say. Zoning obviously is. I think zoning is a good thing. I'm not opposed to it. What I'm talking about here, first of all, I'd like to say that what Agenda 21 is.
Well, we don't. Okay, go ahead.
Well,
we don't have to discuss that. I've read the documents. I've looked at all that stuff, and I'm pretty familiar with the objections to it.
No, that's cool, but I want to tell you, in my opinion, what it is, okay?
Okay.
It's the blueprint, and it's an action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all information, and all human beings in the world.
You think that this is the action plan for one world government, of course?
Well, it was.
Sorry, with it, I need to caveat that without necessarily eliminating the sovereign, the political blocs called nations.
No, I think that it will eliminate the political blocs called nations. I think it's, we're in the process of seeing that right now with the mega regions being established.
So, just to get back to that, in your opinion, what Agenda 21 represents is the blueprint for one world government.
I would say that what it is exactly what I said it is. It's an inventory and control plan, and it's totally comprehensive.
Yeah, so isn't that...
So ultimately, when you have inventory and control of all elements of every aspect of your life, then at that point, then it doesn't much matter who it is that's running your life. Whether you have, which I do think that it will lead to an erasure of boundaries, such as you're seeing with the EU.
And I take it that in this hemisphere, things like NAFTA represent what you're talking about.
Yes, and the EU began with a trade agreement. And I think that with mega regions, which if you go to America2050.org, which is a project of the Regional Plan Association, you'll find that mega regions actually include part of Canada and part of Mexico. So, the thing is, yes, I am a liberal Democrat, and there are many things that I don't politically agree with with many people who also share my concerns about United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. But I think that it's a green mask. It is a hijacking of the environmental movement. And the left is willingly going along with this, and it's a real concern of mine, because people obviously are, they're buying into it for a number of reasons, and primarily it's because the rhetoric is tremendous. It's such good rhetoric for this
process. So what you're saying here is that when you say that it's being hijacked by this, in other words, they're taking the Agenda 21, the people who are pressing Agenda 21 are taking rhetoric and political positions and tied. You're not opposed to sustainability. You're opposed to the idea of using that for political control.
Well, it's when you have to define what sustainability is, because it comes directly.
Because as you know, there are people who are against Agenda 21 who, among other things, deny that there's such a thing in the world now as overpopulation. They say the world is capable of sustaining any number of people, and 10 billion people is not overpopulation, and things like that, which opponents or critics would say is rejecting science.
Well, what I think we need to look at is the relationship between United Nations Agenda 21 and controls on us as free people here in the United States and around the world. So when you're looking at an inventory and control program, which would allow for the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act, and domestic surveillance, fusion centers, things like that. And then when you're looking at loss of private property rights through regulatory takings, this, it all comes together under this blueprint and action plan for inventory and control.
Now, here in New York State and in Ohio, the Agenda 21 thing is being used to oppose gas exploration and drilling, fracking. They're saying, for instance, that they're using exactly what you just said, that it's taking a private property to forbid a property owner from using his land the way he wants to. Now, as somebody who knows real estate law, you know that you can do anything you want to with your land as long as you don't hurt anybody else.
Well, when you look at the precautionary principle, which is principle number 15 of Agenda 21, that says that that if an action is considered to be a potential harm, if there's some suspicion of harm to people or the environment, that in the absence of scientific consensus, the person who is taking that action has to prove that it is not harmful.
Which, of course, is insisting they prove a negative, which can't be done.
Yes, that's right. And this is precautionary principle number 15 of Agenda 21, and it is being used to make policy here in the United States.
Well, let's address that. By the way, I spoke to Judy Burgess's office today, and they think that the law is dead in the water. That's what they told me today.
Okay.
It was up for a vote on Monday.
Right.
But all business was suspended because to get the budget through.
Yeah.
And I'm told that it's dead now. Well, they believe it's dead. People are trying to resurrect it, but they don't expect it.
Well, I actually spoke in Phoenix just the other night, and Judy Burgess came to hear me, Senator Burgess, and she was hopeful, that she could do something with that bill. I think what we're seeing primarily across the United States with bills such as that, and as well as resolutions in Tennessee and other states, is that people are bringing this out of the closet. It's becoming something that people are recognizing across the nation they need to be concerned with, and they need to get more information about. And we're in the information phase at this point.
Don't you think that it raises some interesting constitutional issues if the state, let's say, I'm just making this up as I go along, so don't, I could be wrong about the specifics of this example, but let's say that, I don't know, that the federal government issues regulations on some sort of environmental regulations that people like yourself would consider to be part of establishing Agenda 21 in this country, because as you know, the Agenda 21 thing is a non-binding resolution. It's not a law. It's not a treaty. So that the United States didn't sign on to a treaty, which would, if it had, as you know, treaties are laws. So
right. I totally understand about this.
So, okay, let me stop. Let me just...
Okay, go ahead.
Here. So any laws that would... I'm trying to... So let's say you come up with a law that that you feel would... the feds come up with a law that you feel is in the spirit of Agenda 21. And you would try to... You realize, of course, that if a law is passed by the feds, that the states have no power to refuse to obey it. Right? You know that...
I do know that the only way that the states can alter that is to make it more stringent.
Right. They can't, exactly. So a law like Mrs. Burgess would be unconstitutional.
Well, a lot of these, I would say that a lot of the resolutions that you're seeing, or the, acts or laws that you're seeing, are mainly, whether they're considered to be something that is actually going to change the way that we do business in the United States or not is in my opinion, right now irrelevant. What I would like to see is more people become aware of what sustainable development is. And I want to say to you something. I'd like to say that I think that where you're going with this, if you're talking about the fact that this is not binding and that the United States, that this is not a treaty, I agree with you. But what you're seeing is that through the President's Council of Sustainable Development, formed in 1993 and that ran until 1999, in fact, the 12 cabinet-level secretaries on that council made sure that the entire purpose of that council was to implement Agenda 21 in the United States, all across the U.S. And that was 12 cabinet-level secretaries, including education, EPA, the environment, interior, defense, education. And through them, there was a multi-million-dollar grant given to the American Planning Association. And what they did with that was they created a book called Growing Smart, Legislative Guidebook, with models, statutes for planning and the management of change. And that book is now in every single planning department in the United States, as well as every university and college. So if you're a planner, you are studying that book and you are learning that the highest and best use for property, that the goal for development is smart growth. And that is the preferred development style of United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. And it is it's not just a building style, it is an ideology.
No, I think, tell me if I understand correctly where you're going with this. What you're saying is that the way Agenda 21 takes root in the United States is not through federal law, or necessarily even with state law, but with local regulations built around the idea of sustainability and smart growth.
It's also through federal law. It's through federal grants, it's through HUD grants, EPA grants, Department of Energy grants.
So it's not a matter of laws per se, it's a matter of actions.
Well, there are also laws that are enforcing it. Why would you have a couple, I know you know about the Sacketts in Idaho. Why would you have a couple having to go to the Supreme Court to, in fact, be able to challenge a fine of $37,000 a day by the EPA?
Well, since you're a real estate person, you know the law pretty well. What about, why would somebody have to sue the California Coastal Commission over whether to allow people access to their beach?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That took place in the 80s.
Yes, I know. And, when you have, certainly, these are issues that it's a good thing that we have the courts, but when you're seeing that you're having a government that is committed to pushing as hard as it can against the people, we have a severe problem. And this is not a fantasy. We're not talking about some conspiracy theory here. This is a fact, and we're talking about regulations. We're talking about the American Planning Association, which is a private group, and they are advising planners. They just had a 12-week communications boot camp for planners on how to deal with people like me who are telling the truth about what's happening with regulatory takings across the country. And they are being told to revise their jargon and their propaganda because people are becoming aware of what they're doing. This is a severe problem. When people are not able to use their property as it is zoned, then, when you go to buy property and you don't know what you can do with it, and you, as an appraiser, I can't tell you what it's worth because there's no way to know, that's a problem. That has a huge impact on our economy.
And that state occurs because...
Well, what it is that when you have your general plans, your comprehensive plans, which we have all across the United States in every city, town, county, and state.
Not my town. My town has no comprehensive plan.
Are you sure about that?
Quite sure.
You're in New York State?
New York State, a comprehensive plan is optional, and I live near Cooperstown, New York.
Okay, yes, I do know where that is. Yeah,
Or,
well,
my town has no comprehensive plan.
okay,
In most
well,
towns you have no comprehensive
most towns do have comprehensive plans, or in the process of creating them, or their states are in the process of requiring them. So when you have a general plan, what that is it's a comprehensive document that covers land use, transportation, and basically where your population is going to go. And if your comprehensive plan and your zoning do not match, your zoning is then out of conformance with your general plan and must be brought into conformance. So you may not know that your property has essentially been rezoned. And without, okay, well, great. I mean, I see that in some, I was just in Texas, I do see that there are places, but you have to know that that is not the norm for the United States. So we're talking about, a huge millions of people and millions of acres of property that are impacted by this.
Well, the likelihood that zoning would ever be found unconstitutional is nil.
No, I'm not talking about that, okay? I want to make that really clear with you.
I'm suggesting that it is.
Okay, good. I'm not talking about making zoning unconstitutional. What I'm talking about is the fact that we're seeing comprehensive plans that are, for the first time, joining transportation and housing in using your transportation dollars to direct subsidies to specific locations and specific building styles and specific developers. And so you're having a specific building style subsidized with your either property tax or transportation tax dollars, or sometimes both. And this is a building style which does not pencil out financially in any but the most
What I'm
dense.
getting at here is, I think, is that since there are not going to be federal laws dictating this sort of thing, that what you're suggesting, I'm just trying to understand you, what you seem to be suggesting, as I understand you so far, is that Agenda 21 is a non-binding resolution, but at the state, local, and federal levels, planners and other officials are adopting or adapting the guidelines to suit the goals of Agenda 21, so that it's not a matter of a fiat law, it's a question of a widespread adoption.
Right, well you do know, of course.
Is that correct?
Well, what I'm saying is that of course, that George H.W. Bush signed on to Agenda 21, right?
Right.
Okay, and you know that the President's Council of Sustainable Development was created to implement Agenda 21 in the United States.
Okay.
All right? And many cities across the nation are members of ICLEI, which is the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, which is engaged in...
Right, no, I understand.
Okay, so when you're talking about that, whether the Congress ratified that or not, it is having a huge impact on our laws and our policies all across the country.
That's what I was getting at. In other words, the idea is informing the law, and you're concerned that's your concern.
Well, that is among my concerns. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the Marin County General Plan, Marin County, California, and many other counties, the Los Angeles County General Plan, there are many others. Right in it, it says that it's influenced by the Brundtland Commission of 1987, and they show the the interlocking circles of Agenda 21, social equity, environment, and the economy, right in that document.
Well, let's get back to the politics of this, because I don't want to take up an enormous amount of time. It's not really fair, although I appreciate you making it so much available. As you know, and where we got started, the John Birch Society has been you have many allies on what some people would call the extreme right-wing fringe, that are active with you in working this thing through. Tom Weiss, for instance. And you're not concerned. You're not concerned that they could be that alliance could be used to discredit what you're trying to do.
I think
by saying they're involved,
right. I think we're way past that. I'm clearly a liberal Democrat. There's no question about it. I've been a registered Democrat since 1974. I became active through reading Dude, Where's My Country by Michael Moore. Before that, I was very active nationally in pro-choice issues. I'm gay. I was working on gay rights issues.
I love it. You're so contrary to everything people would imagine would be the case.
I know, but the fact is, I'm a truth seeker, and this is not my religion. I'm open to hearing the truth and to recognizing what is happening to my nation. And I'm looking forward.
Some of your allies are saying that this whole thing is being pushed by Zionists.
It's too bad that they're saying that. If you get my book, which I'd like you to take a look at.
Do you realize that's going to discredit the whole effort?
Well, in my book, I say that one of the reasons that people don't know about this is because there are some people who say that it's a Zionist plot, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Israel is a nationalist. It's a country founded on nationalism, and
I'm not sound. I wouldn't look. I mean, as a Jew, I wouldn't argue against that at all. But you realize that politics is a matter of perception.
I know, but I would say that.
Not a guy who's saying this is a Zionist plot.
Yeah.
It discredits the whole effort.
Right, but if you're.
How are you going to deal with that?
Well, I'm telling you, it's way behind me. That is just not an issue. I'm not concerned about it.
You'll be strapped to it.
No, I am who I am. I am a liberal Democrat, and I am gay, and I am pro-choice, and I am anti-war, and I have plenty of years of credentials about that. And I am also, a certified general real estate appraiser, and the information that I have is totally based in fact. The issue of who I am really is fairly irrelevant anyway. The only thing that's interesting about it is that.
I'm not interested. It's not about you.
No, I know, but here's the thing. I understand what.
With the same brush.
No, I'm not. The thing is that the problem is that there aren't enough liberal Democrats that are calling this out. But I think that is going to change. Because I am going to universities and I am talking with people, and people are concerned about corporatocracy, smart meters, domestic surveillance, food independence.
There's a really interesting piece in I think it was Sunday New York Times by Dr. Al about that, where what's going on in this country, and this is what I found talking to Marty was really interesting because. My own feeling is that the country's heading in a bad direction, but not out of anybody's planning. It's just history. But I agree about the direction. Dr. Al lays out a long series of government actions leading in an unwholesome direction, and you can't deny that these are that he was laying out something that liberal Democrats or any kind of Democrat for that matter, would object to.
Yeah.
And I know. It's an odd time in American history. There's no doubt about it.
Right. I mean, we certainly have to. I am uncomfortable occasionally with the people that I am working with, but and I know that they are uncomfortable with me. But I think that this is a very important issue. It's an American issue. It's nonpartisan. And I think that, of course, people on the left own property. Our bodies are our most important property. We can't forget that. And when we're talking about domestic surveillance, part of Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, is about inventorying and controlling us. And that,
individually.
Yes, and that should be a concern. And the fact that, I really don't trust people who would put this in a left-right paradigm because there's no reason to do that. I don't, I really don't see the point of it except to attempt to discredit or to call into question the motives of people who are simply discussing the reality of the impacts that this is having on our lives.
That's a fair statement. So basically, do you think, based on my questions, that I have a fair handle on where you're going with this?
I don't know.
That's a fair answer.
I mean, I am accustomed to having, press mischaracterize the situation, and I wish that that weren't the case, and I'm hoping that that's going to change. I think that we all need to get together on this because, this, I think, and, being Jewish, I hope that you'll recognize that we need to be vigilant, that, when you see that, for instance, Siemens Corporation, which was fairly close to bankruptcy before Hitler came to power, and then was given generously granted slave labor by Hitler and money in order to create technology for the Germans. Siemens Corporation is very, very big in sustainable development, in the development of the smart grid, in light and heavy rail, in high-speed rail, in solar. They give grants.
Why are these bad things?
I beg your pardon?
Why are these bad things? Why is the idea behind this bad?
Okay, well, if we're talking about, for instance, high-speed rail, which is, I believe, designed to fail, designed to sink.
Let's go past any particular thing. Let's talk about the whole. Why is sustainability a bad thing?
Well, if you're just talking about mere conservation, I don't see anything wrong with it. My partner is a general contractor. She built an entire 2-story house out of recycled materials. We've been using recycled materials for many, many years. I very seldom buy anything new. There's nothing bad about that.
So, but the whole concept of Agenda 21 is sustainability. If you are you objecting to the implementation of sustainability?
What I'm talking about is that this is a green mask. This is a mask that they're using for.
So so I understand you because you're touching on things I've seen on other people. The idea is that the sustainability thing, in and of itself, is what you call a green mask. It's a disguise for a one world government.
For control, inventory and control of everything on the planet. Inventory and control. And we're in the inventory phase at this point, mainly. So we're talking about GPSing and GISing everything.
But you realize that a lot of people who aren't even necessarily political would be skeptical, to say the least, about claims like this.
Well, you don't have to be political to know about this. I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there are a lot of people who, political or not, whether they are political or not political, there are a lot of people who would be skeptical about claims like this.
you mean about what I just said?
That's what you said. What you just saying.
Well, but it's not a claim, it's the fact. I mean, this is true. You just go to your own planning department.
Well, of course, we're in a world now where, as a lot of people have pointed out to me, people don't respect facts anymore. People on both sides of the aisle are now beginning to and they become. By the way, I will be the first one to say that the political discourse is turning into mirror images of each other and getting us no place. I don't see that as helpful in anything. But one way or the other, that that people would look askance, whether you call it a fact or somebody else calls it a claim, is the assertion.
Okay, well, I think this.
Or otherwise, would be viewed askance.
Right, well, I understand what you're saying, and let me just say that this is also a part of United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, because we're talking about education. We're talking about outcome-based education, in which facts, objective reality is called into question, and it becomes something that is open to interpretation. And that is even.
Realize that people on the left say that about people on the right. That they've made up
Well,
their own fact.
look, here's the thing. When you've got a book called Rethinking Mathematics that's being used to teach math, and teachers are being told that objective reality, which is mathematics in its pure form, that it's open to interpretation by individuals because everyone's point of view is valuable, then you have destroyed something for human beings, which is the certainty of mathematics. And I am a math person, and I think it's very important, especially for children, to know that they can come to an absolute correct answer.
Yeah,
and I think
I
that
agree with you.
And there's something very important about being able to identify what is real. And when we allow ourselves...
Can I just observe here?
Sure.
That, and this is just a personal observation that plays no part in this article, and I'm saying this because I like to be fair in my business. I agree with you. And the reason for the phenomena that we're discussing existing was New Left thinking in the late 60s. It's the hippies that injected this into society.
Right.
That's the thing. When you try to explain to somebody, let's say from the right, and I'm not just going to use a Tea Party person, but somebody on the right. I mean, there are many different iterations of that these ideas came from the left, from the hippies. They're outraged. But at the same time, if you point out to an ex-hippie, somebody like me, I'm 65, who was around at the time, and you point out that the reason for the Tea Party, in part, is that the Tea Party has adopted hippie approaches to problems, and they just came to conclusions that the hippies don't like. With the same let's take a look at everything fresh and don't accept anything at face value and look at it and come to our own conclusions and all the rest of that stuff. That just led some people to different, in different directions. I know, for instance, that among evangelicals, they found ex-hippies to be one of the most fertile grounds for recruitment because hippies, all having taken acid, were true believers, and they were looking for something to believe in. So people on the left get outraged when they think that they spawned the right, and people on the right are outraged that they can have anything, that can be associated with anything on the left. I find that ironic.
Well, what I think is important is that, we kind of, as a former hippie myself and, having many, feelings about that time, positive feelings about that time, what I think is really important is that we need to, kind of lay aside these labels that are stopping us from being able to learn and recognize that a revolution, a planning revolution, has happened in our country. And we need to look at how it's being imposed on us, at the Delphi technique, which is a mind control technique that is being used in public meetings on the people, in a government meeting. And this is a manipulation. When you have a country that does not allow dissent, then you have lost your freedom of speech. You've lost your...
And in this case, it's not so much a directive to shut up. It's a technique.
Yes, and it is being used on us by our government in government meetings. And they're also bringing armed men into these government meetings that stand along the walls with their hands on their guns because middle-class, middle-aged people might say something. And I think that this is a real concern here in the United States. If these ideas were so great, they wouldn't have to enforce them with armed men. And I think that we need to be asking the hard questions instead of playing games about who's on the left and who's on the right.
That's a good statement. Is there something you'd like me to know that we haven't discussed?
I'm wondering if you've had a chance to look at my book. If you haven't, I'd be very happy to send it to you. I'm wondering, also, okay, so you're writing a story, and this is for Huffington Post, I guess?
I've been writing for the Huffington Post for 3 years.
Okay. Have you recorded our interview, or were you able to take notes?
I record because I want to be accurate.
Okay, and is it all right with you? I also record all of my interviews, so I just wanted to... Okay, so...
That's fine with me. I'll tell you a funny story about that. When I made my bones in the late 80s by being the first guy to ever nail Donald Trump on the facts.
Uh-huh.
As an appraiser, you'll appreciate that I proved that Trump Tower apartments were the worst real estate investment in New York in the 80s. They had a 4.3% IRR versus a comp of 25%. And at the second, you know how you have two meetings. You have a meeting, then you go out and you report, you come back and you say, oh, what about this, what about that?
Okay.
And at the second meeting, Donald brought out his own tape recorder, and it was this 1970s recorder. It was this big clunky thing. It was really funny.
That's great.
But yes, I do. I mean, I'm 65. I really can't take notes the way I used to.
I know. Who can take notes this fast anyway?
Well, you get used to it. There are ways of doing it, and I've known people to take pretty much verbatim notes if they absolutely had to.
Well,
I'm too old now to my hand won't keep up with it anymore.
yeah. Well, I think, I know you know about my website, obviously, Democrats Against UN, agenda21.com. If you're putting the website in, make sure you put in UN in the website, because somebody bought the URL, Democrats Against Agenda 21, and they're trying to sell it to me for $3,000. So I want to make sure that people don't go to the wrong website, because I think it directs people to an Obama website or something.
If it comes to that, I mean, I'm sure I'll be linking. You'll play a part in this in the piece, and I'll make sure that the link goes to the right website.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I'm looking
Is
forward
there
to...
somebody I should be talking to that you don't do you think I should talk to?
Well, what is your story? What?
Well, I'm just looking at it, but I'll say this: that it does seem based. I believe you when you say that this is your take on it. But it's also true that you've got some very interesting allies, and who are using it for their own purposes. And I see it at work here in upstate New York being used against against fracking, in favor of fracking, and that's all part of the overall issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would just...
What everybody says. The fact that the John Birch Society is involved here and has been pushing this for a couple of years now, and that Alex Jones and Glenn Beck have been pushing it and all that. Well, the fact that all these things this is what I say to me when I say that you've got some interesting allies, that all plays a part in this. It can't be, I can't ignore it.
Well, I think what we need to look at is the fact that more and more Democrats and people on the left are becoming aware of the impacts of United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, and that...
If you can provide me with data on that, I'll look at it.
Well, I mean, this is, I just know from my own, people who send information to me, or people who write to me, or people in my own group, university invitations that I'm getting, and, what I'm seeing is that the rhetoric is sort of breaking down, and that people are recognizing that there is a link between smart meters and the National Defense Authorization Act, and food independence, and corporatocracy, and that can directly be linked to United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development.
That will probably be the quote that you'll appear in. That'll appear. That is an excellent summation of what you're saying.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else you want to tell me?
No, that feels good to me, and I hope it's fair and balanced.
Well, let's hope that it's not even balanced. I don't think that they are, but...
No, I'm just kidding you. I think, let's not play up. Yes, there are plenty of people who might agree with me who wouldn't like the fact that, many aspects of my life, but I personally am able to look past that in order to help to retain my freedom.
Well, I'm going to have to leave there.
Okay, thank you so much.
I don't want to go on, but you're leading me. We could talk for another hour about that.
Well, sometime I'm sure we will.
I'd be looking forward to it, but right now I've got to take care of some banking and buy a new chain for my chainsaw.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.